Good evening and welcome to tonight's regular meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is called to order at 4 p.m. Roll call.
Ms. Armstrong,
Present.
Dr. Alhessan,
Present.
Mrs. Garza,
Present.
Ms. Stewart,
Present.
Mr. Critchfield.
Present. Tonight we do not have requests addressing closed agenda items. And at this time, the board will adjourn to closed session and open session will resume at approximately 6 p.m. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We'll now reconvene to open session at 6:03 p.m. Board Clerk Myra Garza, will you provide an update for closed session topics?
Yes, thank you, Board President Critchfield. The topics discussed in closed session were anticipated litigation, public employee appointment, and the board took no action in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Replacement page for items 10.1 and 11.5 are on the back table. And tonight do we have cards over there? Might have one coming up. All right, well, I believe we have card for public comment. You're good. You're good. Take your time. It's all good. May I have Sue Burkow to the podium, please? Oh, wait. Yeah, go. Thank you.
I had requested to speak on your informational review of the job description, number 14. We, at the Personnel Commission, had appointed Philip Cordillo as the new interim director. He was supposed to be here. Something must have happened. He was going to answer any questions that you might have. So that's basically, it's just information only. If anybody had any questions about the job description, I think you've all been provided with it. And just to know that we have appointed him as our interim director. We will be posting the position and flying it to hire a full-time personnel director of classified.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Burhal. And if the board has any questions during the informational item at the end of our meeting, we'll ask those questions. And if he's not here to answer, maybe we can relay those questions.
Okay, thank you. Anybody?
I don't think we're going to take questions during public comment, though. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Do we have any corrections to this evening's agenda?
We do not.
Thank you. I would like to call, let's see, Mr. Buffum to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand and put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Presentations from student, staff, and community. Tonight, I'm really excited. We heard about this young lady at our CalApps board meeting. Yeah. She was at Skills USA. Marina Felix will be giving our inspirational message today. So everybody, let's welcome Marina to the front for her inspirational message. Oh, Marina. So so Marina did. The category was prepared speech, right? So she's going to be doing that for us, but we're going to need to be on the microphone. Would you prefer to face that way, or you want to be at the podium facing this way? Typically, you'd face this way, but whatever you're comfortable with.
There are many examples throughout history of people reaching beyond perceived boundaries. How about the Wright brothers, for example, after the landmark flight in 1903? At the time, no one thought it could be done. They were ignored, doubted, and even called liars before finally being taken seriously. Why? Because no one believed that a man could fly in a flying machine. It was beyond the limits of the day. No one had ever seen it. Another blind person who redefined limits was Helen Keller. She had the added difficulty of also being deaf. Through the hard work of her tutor, Andy Sullivan, Keller was able to defy all limits and learn to read, speak, and eventually graduate from college. No one thought it was possible. Yet, she proved that the limits people see are often just perceptions that needed to be changed. Even though time passes and people continue to do amazing things, there will always be new ways for people to choose to see no limits. I invite all of you to close your eyes, close them tightly, and block out all these images telling you that you can't. Welcome to the world of no limits, where your eyes don't have to dictate what is and what is not possible. I challenge you, do not ask why. Rather, dare to see no limits, and instead ask, why not? Skills USA, no limits.
Marina, don't go so fast. Come on back. First of all, thank you so much. So, Marina is at one of our middle schools, 7th grade, correct? And she just went to Atlanta to represent for CalApps and then the Skills USA. And we invited her here tonight to show our great talent students. Why don't you just give us a little bit about yourself and the Skills USA?
Oh, Skills USA was an amazing experience. I enjoyed trading the pins with all the other states. I enjoyed preparing for the moment of me finally being in front of the judges. And it was a really good experience, and I would recommend it for all the other students who are trying to find some activity to have fun with, because it's also a learning experience, and it's very enjoyable. And I'm definitely doing it again next year.
That's awesome. And your whole speech was 10 minutes at the competition, right?
It was
Round?
it was supposed to be 5 to 7.
5 to 7, and all completely memorized, right? Mm-hmm. That's very impressive. I can't even memorize a script for this meeting. So, great job, and thank you again. Really,
I just want to say something. I liked your analogy with Helen Keller. So I think it resonated with me more so because of my own disability. But I was just curious, what brought your thoughts to using that symbolism?
Because she was an example of people literally seeing no limits, because she did not let her blindness and her being deaf stop her from achieving her dreams.
Right. Great job. I just want to comment on that. So you did
amazing
wonderful.
job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Any other comments from the board?
I really like that speech, no limits, because we do place limits on ourselves or we project them onto other people, and we really should not do that. We should practice, hey, just go for it. go for it. The sky is not even the limit.
Exactly.
You know, so yeah, so that's great. I'd like to see you I'd like to hear that in a speech meet. You know, we have speech meets. So you remember that. Brad, you're going to have to keep in touch with her. I would love to hear that in a speech competition.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I just want to say congratulations. I'm on the Cal Apps board, and so we talked about you, and I was really excited to hear about everything, but to see you and hear you, I teach 7th grade, and just the way that you just did that, your maturity, I just see really great things for you in the future.
Thank
you.
Thank you. And who brought you here tonight? Are those
My parents.
awesome? Hey, round of applause for mom, dad, brother. And thank you again. Really appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to our community communications. CSEA does not have a communication tonight. Can BTA President Carrie McDaniel come on down? Welcome.
Thank you. All right. Good evening, Board President Critchfield, Interim Superintendent Mrs. Azevedo, Board, Cabinet, and audience members. It's been a while since I've been up here. I looked at my last board report. It was on May 9th. The end of the year came and went really, really fast. We had 3 positive bargaining sessions in May. I was there for each of the morning planning sessions with my bargaining team, and they seemed pleased with the progress. I hope we continue this in the fall, as BTA has spent a lot of time poring over our contract and gathering concerns from our members. BTA also sent out updates to our members after each session to keep them informed during the process. June was busy with end-of-the-year activities. BTA recognized 22 retiring teachers with some goodies. We gave out yard signs, certificates, and a little token of appreciation. It was nice to see the excitement and appreciation from our members. Once school got out, I went on vacation. Former BTA President Linda Atkins-Arndt and I went on an Alaskan cruise. And then my husband and I took our dogs and trailer and spent a few days in Idaho visiting the Snake River and Shoshone Falls. While that was happening, State Council recognized CTA recognized Board President Critchfield for his podcast Brick by Brick, and myself for the Voice newsletter with the Communications Awards. Then it's been back to work, union work, as that has never stopped. Some of you already know it's been a pretty busy summer. BTA had the rest of our office updated. It looks really nice. I've met and kept in touch with many of you here over the summer. We are getting excited to welcome our new teachers to BSD at the new teacher breakfast in August. As BTA president, I'm committed to building positive relationships and will continue to lead our teachers with integrity. I look forward to seeing what the new school year brings and how we can continue working together to make this district the best it can be. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, Carrie. And I think also Vice President Stewart was also recognized in CTA as well. So, round of applause for Vice President Stewart. Can PTA President Linda Morgan come on down to the podium? Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. After that student and then a formal report from BTA, I kind of feel a little pressure, but
You're okay.
I had intended a speech. I do have some slides, so hopefully I will just make up the rest and share something with you guys. So good evening, President Critchfield, board members, Interim Superintendent Lisa Azevedo, staff, and community members. Yeah, my name is Linda Morgan, and I am the Bellflower Council PTA President for 2024-25. I am continuing, and our new term started July 1st. So I wanted to start off with the California State PTA mission statement, which is to positively impact the lives of all children and families. And then so below that, to support the PTA purpose, and I included some of our goals and our mission for this year as far as Bellflower Council is concerned. Supporting our units at the school site by providing training and support, and creating opportunities for them to exchange ideas and experiences, and to kind of increase awareness of PTA and family engagement. So, I mean, it's all up there. And this is the team that I have the privilege of working with this year. And actually, as of last night, I'll have a second VP pretty soon as well. So only leaving one vacancy on our board. It's a good team, and I look forward to what we're going to be able to do this year. And then these are the school sites that have a PTA and the presidents that we're going to be working with at each site. Their logos are below, and on top is our Bellflower Council PTA logo for this year. It's the official logo on the left, and then on the right, kind of summarizing our goals, which is just supporting our students and connecting our families and building that community. So that kind of explains that. I do have quite a few meetings every month. The most important and fun one is the executive board meeting where we meet as council board with all our unit presidents. The superintendent and deputy superintendent will also be attending those meetings. As board, you're more than welcome to sit in on those as well. But you will most definitely get invites to our association meetings, which is where we do our recognitions and celebrations, as well as our Red Ribbon Week and honorary service towards the end. Collaborating with our sites staff, this month I met with Lisa Azevedo and Ryan Smith, and so that was exciting. I wanted to thank Ryan Smith for being a very strong PTA supporter and actually inviting the PTA voice, and I look forward to collaborating and already putting me in touch with principals and different staff, so thank you. So yeah, excited to what's to come. Working on community outreach, and in the next couple of months, I'll be sharing some of the progress and things that we're working on. Like I said, term started July 1st, so some things are still in progress. One of those things is kind of our PTA membership. You can still join online through Totem, and we still, some sites, and we still have the envelopes where you can pay your cash or check. What is new is going to be our community memberships, is where you get a chance to join all 12 of our units for the low price of $63. And that's just a one time, like you join all at once. Unfortunately, that right now is not through Totem. That is in person. And so I have envelopes for you if you guys wanted to submit your community membership and join all 12 of our units to show support. And then the other thing with that, our memberships, is we're working on a membership perks program, which is, you know, we know why we PTA, but some people might like something a little more tangible. So we will have coupons to like a free kids meal to CPK or Red Robin, or a free shake when you go out, and working with some businesses to maybe give a discount when you show your PTA membership card. And so that's in the works. I will share more as we finalize some details. And then quick plug for our Reflections program. This program usually starts, it kicks off at the beginning of the school year at each site, or at the PTA unit level. And but in case, you know, all the theme is accepting imperfection. It's already out there. If the students need something fun to do during the summer, you know, to get creative, think about what that theme means to them, and either create a project in visual art, or literature, dance, or any of the 6 themes that they can submit art in. But again, it'll kick off once school starts, and our units will be sharing out the information. I just thought maybe it's a fun summer project. And that is it for tonight. Thank you for listening to me ramble, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Linda. And please make sure you leave one of those envelopes for me, because for all of us.
I'd like one too.
Clerk Garza would like one as well, please.
Yeah, last year Amy signed up for all of them, and she's held it over my head ever since. So now I got to do it too. So please. Thank you, Amy. It is now time for Superintendent's report. Ms. Azevedo.
Thank you. Yes, the district has recently completed the quarterly uniform complaint report summary for April through June as required by the county and as a result of the Williams settlement legislation. There were no complaints received during this quarter in the areas of instructional materials, facilities, or teacher assignments. I'd also like to share that our board bulletin board this month, which I know might be a little bit difficult to see tonight, celebrates the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. ADA champions the rights and inclusion of individuals with disabilities. BUSD's core value of equity supports that all students have equal access to quality staff, courses, activities, and services and resources based on their individual needs. We thank our district office staff for creating the board for you this evening. And
Thank
that would
you.
conclude my report.
Thank you, Ms. Azevedo. At this time, we have a bond presentation. I'll turn it over to Mark Farrell from Dale Scott and Company. Welcome.
Thank you, President Critchfield. Good evening, trustees, Interim Superintendent Azevedo, staff, and community members. So we're kind of back, kind of recapping some of the information that's been presented to the board over maybe about the past year about general obligation bonds, and kind of talk about potential next steps. So a very quick kind of what is a general obligation bond? Essentially, general obligation bonds or GO bonds are loans that are paid back by property taxes within the district. All taxable property is responsible for paying back the bond, so commercial property, industrial property, residential property. The tax for a general obligation bond doesn't start until the bonds are actually issued. So we'd have the election, community passes the bonds, there's still no tax until the board actually makes the decision to issue the bonds. Once they're issued, the bonds have a fixed payment schedule, and then the county will levy a tax necessary to pay back those bonds. With Prop 39 bonds, these are the bonds that are approved by 55% voter approval threshold. For a unified school district, kind of it's called a soft cap of $60 per 100,000 is the maximum tax rate that you can ask for. We call it a soft cap because of the bullet above. You know, the county will levy whatever tax rate's necessary to pay back the bond. So when we issue the bonds and structure the bonds, we try to make conservative assumptions about future assessed value growth so that tax rate stays where we have promised and pledged to the community. The funds can be used for the construction, renovation, furnishing, and equipping of schools and related school facilities. It does require public disclosure of all spending. There has to be an independent citizen oversight committee that reviews all of those expenditures and makes sure that that the district's only spending bond money on projects that are actually listed in the election resolution. And the funds can only be spent here on schools in Bellflower. These funds can't be taken by the state and used anywhere else. One other kind of new thing, the legislature has approved a $10 billion statewide school bond measure. The local bonds that the district would pass would provide that local match to qualify for the state funding for projects. So typically on a new construction project, it's roughly 50-50, 50% local, 50% state. And on modernizations, it's 40-60, 40% local match, 60% comes from the state. So the district has one prior bond measure, Measure BB, back in 2012, $79 million bond. Very strongly supported by voters, almost 73% yes vote on Measure BB. The estimated tax rate for Measure BB was about $55.19. And you can see the projected tax rates going forward. Measure BB currently is set to expire in 2041. Kind of the average tax rate over that period of time is about $46.25. One thing to note, when we refinance bonds back in 2023, Measure BB had two different series, a Series A and a Series B. We refinanced Series A, saved taxpayers about $8.5 million in future bond payments, and shortened the term by 4 years. So potentially in the future, the district could refinance Measure BB bonds and shorten that term a little bit from that 2041 date. And this is just a comparison of tax rates, general obligation bond tax rates for some other area unified school districts. And you can see we've got Long Beach Unified up over $180 per $100,000 in their tax rate. That means they've passed multiple bond measures over the years to have a tax rate that's above that, say, $60 Prop 39 limit. And we have Bellflower kind of down on the lower end of the range with their $44 tax rate this year. The district had a voter opinion survey conducted by True North Research, and these are kind of a summary of the key findings from that voter opinion survey. There were a lot of positive signs in the survey. Voters rank quality education in local schools as the most important issue facing the community. Kind of what they call strong natural support for the bond. So when they just first initially asked about the community support for a bond measure, 65% of voters said they would vote yes for the bond. All of the projects and improvements were supported by the survey respondents. They responded very positively to strongly to the positive arguments that were presented in the survey. In all of the various ballot tests, so there's a test conducted at the beginning, middle, and then at the end after the arguments against, all of those were above the 55% approval threshold required for a Prop 39 bond. Some of the challenges that were noted in the surveys, there is some tax rate sensitivity as they asked about different tax rates. Definitely they saw more support as the tax rate declined, and that's fairly common. Also common when they bring out the negative arguments, that also tends to lower the support a little bit, dropped by about 4%. And then kind of just a general comment about, we're in a very hyper-partisan environment right now nationally, potentially some statewide initiatives that could also be controversial, and then the unknowns, right? Economy, what happens with inflation, and other potential measures. One thing I did go back and look at, because the question that comes up is, how does the state school bond being on the ballot affect local school bonds? So we go back to November of 2016, the last time there was a school bond measure on a presidential ballot. Prop 51, it passed at 55%. There were 175 school bonds on the election that year. 186 passed. So 96% of all school bond measures passed, and there was a statewide school bond measure on the ballot. So, sample size of one, but it does not look like having a state school bond on the ballot would be a negative for school districts. If you talk about the fact that you're able to leverage your local funds to get the state matching funds, that's definitely a positive argument. So we also went back and looked at the district's facility master plan. I won't go through and list or describe all of these in detail, but basically the projects were grouped into 4 different priorities. So priority 1 being the most immediate pressing needs, and some then down to priority 4 being a little bit longer term in nature. So we then kind of categorized the projects and their various priority levels. And certain projects fall under multiple priority levels, right? So there may be, for example, renovating some classrooms. Some classrooms may be in much more need, so they fell under priority 2. Some maybe could go a little bit longer before needing renovations, so they could be in priority 3 or even priority 4. We did not include priority 4 on this list for 2 reasons. One, they're a little bit longer term in nature, and the cost. We'll get to that in just a minute. What kind of, as we mentioned earlier, the survey responses for all of the projects were very positive, and especially for those projects that we see on priority 1, 2, and 3. So for example, ADA improvements, 70% strongly favor that as a project, another 18, almost 19% somewhat favor. You can see going down the list, repairing roofs, plumbing, HVAC, modernizing labs, improving safety, creating modern classrooms. Even when we get down into improving physical education facilities, which in a lot of surveys tends to really fall off. You still have, 52% strongly favoring and another 31%, 31.5% somewhat favoring. So still kind of over 80% support for something that's removed from the classroom. The facility plan also outlined the costs of these different priority projects. And the facility plan was done in 2022. So on the far left of the table here, we've got the $22 cost that was outlined in the facility plan. So for priority 1 and 2 projects, the cost was $54.1 million. Add in priority 3 at $60 million. We're now, $114, $115 million just for the priority 1 projects as of 2022. Construction cost inflation over the past couple years has been running at about 6%. So the $24 column kind of inflates those costs to what we think are today's dollars. So almost $129 million for the priority 1, 2, and 3 projects. And then knowing, we won't be able to complete all the projects within a year. So if we kind of look out another 6 years to 2030, again, continuing that inflation at 6% annually, we're looking at $86 million for priority 1 and 2, another $96 million for priority 3 projects. So potentially $182, $183 million worth of project cost. So then we have to look at really then what are the economic realities and limitations of what a bond measure in Bellflower could support. So scenario 1 kind of uses the Prop 39 maximum $60 tax rate, and that could generate a $150 million bond. On scenario 2, the $44 tax rate was the highest tax rate used in the survey. It was also the tax rate used in the 75-word sample ballot question that they used in the survey. That would yield a bond measure of $111 million. The survey also used a $34 and a $28 tax rate. So you can see those amounts, potentially $86 and $70 million. And so again, the bond measure is going to authorize the total dollar amount. We'll have a project list that'll dictate what the funds can be spent on. But then ultimately, every time the district wants to issue bonds, it will come back to the board to determine the dollar amount of bonds to be issued in each series, and also what projects are going to be kind of funded and paid for out of those bonds. And then you can see the assumptions below. We're assuming 3 series of bonds in each 25-year terms. Average interest rate of 4.5%. This is a little bit lower. I think some of the numbers that I shared with the board is probably almost close to 6 or probably 8 months ago now. We were assuming 5%. Interest rates, kind of at that time, right, interest rates were kind of still going up. Inflation was still a very big concern. But interest rates really kind of, peaked at around 4.5% for these kinds of bonds. Today, interest rates are at about 4% for these types of bonds. The latest economic news is kind of trending towards potentially an interest rate cut by the Fed as early as September. So we're kind of now in a more normal interest rate environment, so kind of lowered that interest rate assumption 0.5% to 4.5%, and then 3.5% assessed value growth. So the steps necessary to get on the ballot here this November, the timeline is relatively short. The election resolution needs to be delivered to the county by August on or before August 9th. So we've got our meeting here tonight. If the board provided direction to move forward, we would start working on the project list and the resolution with bond counsel next week. Bring back that resolution as a information item on a special board meeting on July 25th. Make any updates necessary based on board feedback, and bring it back for action on August 8th. There's a few kind of additional activities I just want to highlight. While the district is not allowed to do any advocacy for the bond, there is actually one piece of advocacy that's built into the law, and that's the argument in favor of the bond measure. So the district and the board are authorized to draft that argument. So we would help the district. We would draft that argument. The district needs to identify potential signers. You allowed 5 signers for the argument. If an argument against is filed, you can file a rebuttal. That also has either the same 5 signers or 5 additional signers. We would help the district through that whole process. There's also the ability to do informational outreach. So again, you can't provide advocacy, but you can provide information about, say, the facility plan, about the bond measure, what projects it may fund, the cost of the bond measure, et cetera. So that would happen between August and October. And finally, the election day, November 5th. There's some additional information, details in the appendix. If you have questions, I can refer to that. But really, there's kind of a few things that the board needs to decide tonight. If you'd like to move forward, you're going to need to formally direct staff to move forward with developing the bond resolution. Need to set July 25th as a special board meeting date. And then also provide direction on kind of a tax rate that you're comfortable with, if we're using the $44 that was used in the survey or something else. And then lastly, if the board would like to establish an ad hoc committee to provide any feedback and help on the developing the election resolution.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Any questions from the board? Dr. O'Hess?
Okay, I just want to get some clarity.
Yes.
So I was reading about the CSBA put out about Go Bond.
Yes.
Is that the one you were talking about?
GO bond, yes.
That the state would help support. So help me sort it in my head. So we have the BB funds now, and when's the debt payoff date for that one?
The last payment on BB is 2041.
2041. And can that be used to offset in regards to the Go bonds that were put out by the state?
If the district still has any Measure BB funds, yes, but
No, we don't.
Yeah.
So
So-
in regards to paying back, it doesn't support that.
correct, no.
Right, okay.
No.
So this new bond, we can offset some of the cost with this support from the state?
So the funding from the state would help, I guess, maybe supplement the project. So if you had, let's say, a $10 million modernization project at a school site, and that site is eligible to receive modernization funding, basically about every 20 years, a school site's eligible for modernization funding. So if you had a $10 million project and that project was eligible for state funding, the district would contribute $4 million to the project and the state would contribute $6 million.
Okay, so how does that fit in with what we're asking for now? So we're asking for 129 million, right?
So the potential
What I saw on the-
scenarios ranged from 150 million to 70 million. So
So the diagram here, when you say projects 1, 2, and 3 priorities, 129 million, that's referencing our priorities only.
correct.
Okay,
So these are just looking at the facility plan,
right.
all of the projects in the facility plan in those categories, what those potential costs are. And then ultimately the board must make a determination which projects you would actually like to fund. If there's only, so if, let's say, the district and the community pass your bond, but the state bond does not pass, then you only have, the district's funds available for all of those projects.
see.
If the state bond passes, it's kind of a supplement. It's a bonus, if you will. You'll be able to accomplish more of these projects that are in the facility plan because the state's going to contribute money to those projects.
So it'll offshoot our costs.
Correct,
Is
correct.
correct.
Yes, it allows you to do more,
Right.
more with the money that your community is providing for facilities, yes.
Right, so.
Thank you,
and
Doctor. I'm gonna circle back around.
I just
Ms.
had one
Stewart.
question as far as the timeline. Like, how long would this be for us to pay off?
So each series is 25 years, and I think we're assuming 3 years between series, so a total of about 31, 32 years.
Okay. No further questions.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hudson. Ms. Stewart.
I know if you could explain to me, and I kind of get it, but like the $44 on every 100,000 or something like that, because I'll be honest, when I first started looking at the bond, obviously the community is like, more money, more money. And then when I was looking, it's like less than $200 a year, right? It's not, can you explain that so that our community kind of understands?
Sure. So the tax rate is based on the assessed value of property. So if we say a $44 tax rate, and let's assume we have a single family home that has an assessed value of $500,000. So $500,000 divided by 100,000 gives us 5. 5 times 44 is $220. So that homeowner would pay $220 a year for this bond measure. And so one of the challenges is, assessed value doesn't equal market value. So if you've been in your home for 20 years, your assessed value could be extremely low. It could be $100,000, $200,000 in some cases. And the house next door, if someone just bought it, it could be $800,000. So every homeowner has to kind of look at what the impact will be to them based on their assessed value.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Mr. Armstrong, any questions?
Well, which bond are we going to go for? Are we going to go for the 170 or what?
Well, I think that's
What,
what we're
150?
I-
Which scenario? Let's go.
Well, I wanted to make sure everybody asked their questions, and then we'll go on to, Mark mentioned resolution and the meeting, which rate, and then potentially ad hoc committee. But I just want to make sure. Is Myra on? Can she chime in? Ms. Garza, do you have any questions for Mark?
No questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
So I guess my next question is for staff. So we will have input on what we do as far as projects are concerned, because again, we haven't gone over this in a little while. So we will, in that July 12th, 18th, we'll be able to give feedback on what we would like to see.
If staff is directed to move forward, the next steps would be to develop that resolution. And yes, the board would look at the resolution. That's where the projects are listed. So that would be the next meeting, next step, if we are directed to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Dr. O'Hesson?
Thank you. I do have one more question. So we're competing with Cerritos College bond this election also. So the question asked in regards to the competitive nature between the two bonds, because then we're going to be paying, I'm paying already about $350 for Cerritos and for our BB bond. So how does that factor into the whole picture? Because I've been asked that question by the community. So how does that work?
In terms of, from a tax perspective, in terms of?
Well, two actually, thank you for clarifying. So in terms of the bond passing when we're competing, and then from the tax perspective.
Sure. Well, typically K-12 districts enjoy greater support than the community college district. So I would be more concerned as the community college with having kind of my underlying school districts having bonds on the ballot than the other way around. I think people tend to support their K-12 before they then support their community college. And then it really just becomes, if the district did a $44 tax rate and the college did they can only go up to $25, potentially you could have, $69 additional tax rate, once all of the bonds are issued. So it just kind of depends ultimately on the tax rate the board chooses and the tax rate that the community college chooses.
And that increases over the 32-year of the bond.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Hesson. I do have one. You mentioned the scenario if we were to pass a bond and then the state bond, for whatever reason, didn't pass, then we would just have our pot of money to do
Correct.
that. What about the scenario of if the state bond passes and we don't go for the bond, what does that look like for us?
Well, the problem there is finding your local share, your local match. So
What does that mean?
meaning, so if the example I gave was a $10 million project, the $4 million that came from the district, if you passed a bond, would come from bond funds. If you don't have that bond to provide that, your options are general fund dollars. If you have general fund dollars, I don't know if you have any RDA money, developer fees, or ultimately a certificate of participation, a lease financing, which is basically backed by the general fund. So that's the challenge with how school facilities are really funded in the state. It falls to local districts passing bond measures to tax themselves to improve their facilities, and then the state will give you some money. There's really not a big pot of money that the state just gives to districts without districts coming up with their local share.
Good. Ms. Armstrong.
I just have a question. How much will it possibly cost our district to even put this on the ballot?
I'd have to check with LA County what their election costs are. It would be probably comparable to a board election cost. But if you're also having, I don't know if you have any board elections this November, the cost then becomes lower because there's already the board election happening. But that would be kind of the estimate you could use, like a recent board election cost.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Ms. Garza, no questions still? I just want to make sure. She has a question?
Yes, I do.
Madam
Thank you for
Clerk, go
circling
for
back.
it. Sure.
My question pertains to, are there any conflicting interests with any surrounding LEAs that he may or may not, be doing this type of services with at this moment?
So conflicting for us, for me, our firm,
For
or was it
for the firm itself?
No, we're not working with the community college district.
And any of the surrounding K through 12 districts in our area?
Closest would be Pasadena Unified.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, so looking for direction for staff from the board. How do we feel? Do you want to? I'm for staff moving forward with drafting the resolution as a first step. How do my fellow colleagues feel? Well, I don't think we'd be voting on it, but we're just looking for some consensus to give staff an idea that it's something that we're looking into and want to do.
Well, I say move forward with the bond, with the draft.
Cool. Dr. Hazen?
This is not for the bond itself, though, right?
This is to direct staff to move forward in drafting the resolution.
So if I can step in real quick.
Sure.
The resolution is when you actually move forward with the bond. This is just kind of preparing for that. So the vote for the resolution will be at the, I forgot what date it was, but
August
July
8th.
25th date. So this is just simply directing staff to continue this process. The vote won't be taken until the next meeting and I believe it's in August. if I'm
Yeah, I
not
think
mistaken.
the draft
August
is
8th.
July 25th, and then we'll have a following meeting for any corrections with board inputs.
Correct.
August 8th is the official date that you will vote whether or not to go out and put the bond measure.
Great.
And then just to clarify on that vote, at that point in time, you'll need to have 4 in favor on that August date.
Great. Thank you.
So
So the
Vice President
purpose-
Stewart?
Can I just clarify, the purpose of this would be to what?
To direct staff to start working on the draft resolution to bring to the board.
In regards to outline the steps that we need to take?
So
To draft the project list and election resolutions, they have to do that, and they'll have the week of July 12th to the 18th to get that done and have it ready for us to look at on the next meeting, which is July 25th.
So based on the findings that you put together, we would then vote on it.
Basically, what you're going to do, if you choose to, is give us direction to move forward. If you're interested in moving forward at looking at a resolution for a bond, we would need to be given that direction. Then we would call a special meeting for you to look at that resolution that's developed on the 25th. At that time, you would provide input to the resolution, and then it would be brought forward again August 8th, and at that time, you would vote yes or no.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
So, Madam Clerk,
Thank you. I recommend we move forward.
thank you. And Madam Vice President.
I also recommend that we move forward. I think I would like to stay within scenario 2 or 3 and kind of stay in the middle and not go super high and low, but I would definitely like to move forward with this bond as well. Thank you.
So I think we have direction to move forward with the draft resolution. Also, colleagues, we'd have to have a special meeting on July 25th, and I would be in favor of scenario 2. How do we feel going down the line?
Do we need to vote on the amount now?
No.
I don't think we need to.
We will include the dollar amount in the resolution. That can be changed at the July 25th meeting. Again, the scenario 2, the $44, that was the tax rate that was largely used in the voter opinion survey.
My understanding, the reason you'd want that is because in the resolution there'll be the list of the projects, and you'd want to know kind of what we're looking at as far as what we could fit on that list.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to say, choose scenario 4, you may want to look at the project list and say, well,
Right.
realistically, we're not going to be able to get to all of these types of projects, so maybe we need to reduce the project list a little bit.
Right. So I would be in favor of scenario 2. Ms. Stewart said either 2 or 3, I believe.
Honestly, I trust you guys and the staff because we haven't really looked at the facilities that we want to do. I know I have certain ideas. I'm sure Renita does and everyone else. So I'm just kind of saying that's kind of my general area, and then you guys make that expert decision.
Understood.
So you guys going to get the project list. It could be anywhere, an estimated cost from anywhere from 86 to 150 million, and we can cut off. So, yeah. All right, get that wish list together.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. City, do you have any comment on the July 25th meeting or the scenario? Any preference?
I'll wait to see the resolution.
Okay.
Thanks.
And Madam Garza, any further comment on those 3 things?
I would like to move forward with scenario 2.
Great. Thank
And
you.
July 25th, I believe will be fine.
Great. Do we have sufficient direction from the board on those 3 things?
We do.
And also, you mentioned going into committee, so I'd like to create an ad hoc committee. I'd like to be a part of that. And which one of my colleagues on the board would like to be on that committee? Nobody wants to hang out with me. All right. Ms. Garza? Okay. Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay, great. And so I'd direct staff, because in that committee, I would like there to be ample input from the community. So I'll leave it to you to bring our stakeholders and everyone together so we can talk about this and find what's going to be best for our district, so we could bring something to the board to consider. Okay, I think those are the 4 things. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to major action. We have 6 major action items this evening. The first item is 11.1, Proposition 29 Annual Report. Mrs. Acevedo, do we have a presentation?
We do. Mrs. Carter is going to give us our annual presentation on the Prop 28 funds.
Tonight I'll be sharing information regarding Prop 28 funding, including the allowable costs and the expectations for use. California voters approved Prop 28 that requires the state to establish new ongoing funding to support arts instruction starting in the 23-24 school year. The allocation for BUSD is approximately $1.7 million. This funding is required to be allocated to school sites for expenditure. Unlike in the past, when we've received one-time funding that is centralized and the district develops a plan for expenditure, this is ongoing funding that must be distributed to the school sites for expenditure annually. Based on the funding formula established by the state, each school is allocated a certain amount of funds to be spent over the course of 3 years. Each February, the CDE will post the allocation amount, and the total funding amount is certified in June after the May revise. This slide shows the funding projections for each school site. The school administrator, in collaboration with teachers, families, and students, determines the best use of the funds that will increase and enhance arts and music programs for their schools. This means that sites are to determine the current arts and music programs and utilize these funds to increase arts and music opportunities for their students. These funds cannot be used to supplant current expenses and must be used to supplement the current program. Schools are allowed to share the cost of teachers, teachers' aides, and/or community partners as long as the funding for one school is not paying for the services of another school site. There are strict guidelines regarding how this funding may be used. 80% of the funds must be spent on staffing certificated or classified district employees, and the remaining 20% can be spent on materials to support the program. This is known as the 80-20 rule. The state has developed a waiver that may be submitted for schools that do not believe they will be able to meet the 80-20 rule. However, the intent of the waiver is not to be utilized indefinitely. For example, the last training provided regarding this funding and the end of May informed LEAs that the waivers are not being approved currently because it's too early to determine whether school sites will not meet the 80% threshold for staffing before the end of the third year in 2026. A waiver may be submitted anytime within the 3-year period of the funding allocation. This slide shows funding allocations over the course of 5 years, and that if a waiver is submitted in the 25-26 school year for the funding allocation finalized this June in 23-24, it is still within the window for consideration, as would be a waiver for 24-25 school year and 25-26 school year be within the window if it was submitted within that 25-26 year. And you see that with the 3 submits in that column. Also, there are specific reporting requirements for this funding. Annually, the district must certify that the funds being received will be used in compliance to the 80-20 rule, will be used to supplement current programs, and only 1% of the funds can be used for administrative costs. Also, annually, the district will submit a report for board approval that includes information regarding how the Prop 28 funds are being spent. Specifically, the report includes the number of employees funded, the number of students served, and the number of school sites providing programs using these funds. The report is an action item tonight. Once approved, it will be submitted to the state and posted to our BUSD website. Schools will complete an expenditure plan annually to identify their intent to spend their annual allocation within the 3-year window. At the end of the 3-year window for each allocation, a final expenditure report noting any funding that has not been spent will need to be submitted to the state. So every school is in a different place in the implementation phase for these funds. The first step was to determine the current programs provided and to reach out to educational partners to solicit input regarding how the site might increase or improve arts and music programs. In BUSD, we are proud of our robust visual and performing arts programs that we provide to our students. Our district has historically funded the arts in BUSD while other districts have cut programs. The following are slides that show the programs currently being offered here in BUSD. At the elementary level, students in the after-school program are provided opportunities to learn drawing skills through their Young Rembrandts program. Also, 5th and 6th grade students during the school day have an opportunity to participate in chorus and band. The design of the music programs in BUSD is to be continued for interested, to be a continuum for interested students. At the elementary level, students learn to read music and have an opportunity to perform twice a year for their school community, and if interested, students have a variety of solo performance opportunities as well. The chorus program is not merely choir. Students also have an opportunity to try out for dance or speaking parts, as the performances are designed as a play with whole choir parts. Students participating in chorus also have an opportunity twice a year to perform for their school communities and to try out for ensemble singers that tours and performs throughout the year. Some of our elementary sites have expanded music education to their primary grades through contracting with ETMLA or Enrichment Through Music Los Angeles. Once students enter middle school, they have a wider variety of visual and performing arts opportunities, including CTE exploratory courses as well. Both Mayfair and Bellflower provide multiple options. The foundation laid in elementary and middle school allow for students to specialize as they enter high school. Students have increased opportunities in theater, instrumental and vocal performance, visual arts, and CTE courses. Both Bellflower and Mayfair have multiple options for their students. Students attending Mayfair also have an opportunity to enter into the Art Academy and Design Aesthetics program. So, as mentioned previously, the first step was to identify the current music and arts programs provided at sites and to reach out to educational partners for input regarding their interest in increasing music and arts opportunities. This slide shows the phases that sites will follow as they engage in how to best spend these additional funds over the course of the next 3 years. Most sites are in the analysis phase of implementation, wherein they have solicited input and identified how they will be supplementing the current arts programs at their sites. Others are in the design phase, where they are developing how and what will be taught to students. This includes developing instructional schedules, determining materials to be used, developing opportunities for collaboration and intentional planning to integrate arts instruction within the subject matter content areas. As we move through this process, we will determine whether a waiver is necessary or whether we are able to hire staff to meet the 80-20 rule. Based on educational partner input, administrators have shared their current plans for expenditure of these funds. At the high school level, Mayfair is proposing to increase visual arts support through hiring assistants and purchasing additional arts and music materials. Bellflower is proposing to add mariachi and hire assistants to support the band program. For new positions, job descriptions will need to be developed and brought to Personnel Commission if they're classified. And if staff, if certificated staff is to support and increase through stipends, we would have to look at that through the negotiation process. At the elementary level, site principals have proposed to increase their programs in the areas listed on the slide. These decisions were made based on educational partner input, as well as based on the current programs already being offered at the sites. As mentioned earlier, some sites have been able to provide music education to primary grades and therefore are increasing their arts education in other areas. The next steps are to post and hire staff and determine if and when a waiver is needed to be submitted. Sites will annually collaborate with educational partners to plan for site expenditures of these funds, and the district will provide the annual report for approval and posting. By October 1st of the third year of each funding allocation, a final expenditure report will be submitted to the state. I hope this was helpful to understand the requirements of this funding source and how sites are proposing to expend the funds and supplement their already robust arts programs.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. I will now open it up for questions from the board. Dr. Alhessan?
Thank you, Bonnie, for the great presentation. So I was wondering, with the funding and the different sites, is there room to add something different instead of just continuing with the same programs at the site? Like offer an innovative, like for example, like Craig Williams, they've been doing chorus or different options for them to have. Would there be that opportunity?
There is that opportunity. Craig Williams is one of the school sites that has ETMLA, and so when you're looking on the slide, I think it's 23, they're looking to propose to include dance into their program. So they're going to be working on what that means for this year.
Okay, so there is additional funding to enhance those programs.
Well,
add to existing programs, excuse me.
Right, because the funding cannot be used for what we're currently doing. It has to be used for something new. So it has to be used for something on top of what they're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alhessan. Ms. Armstrong?
Will the funding allow you to, I understand you can bring in specialized trainers, but will this include our special education population also?
The schools would include everyone. So similar to chorus and band in 5th and 6th grade, every student can participate.
Okay, and will this also provide opportunities for them to, like I was just talking about the speech meet. There are different arts programs that comes together, like countywide. Will this allow for like field trips and buses and stuff like that?
It could. It's going to allow for any arts and music programs within the arts framework. So we have to stay within that framework. And then we have to keep in mind the 80-20 rule. So once you take 80% off the top of some of these allocations for personnel, the 20% would be what is left for the field trips or materials.
Okay. All right. As long as they're included. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Ms. Garza, do you have any questions?
Yes, President Critchfield. Thank you so much, Ms. Carter, for the presentation. Could you, maybe you've already gone over this, but I'm running on low energy right now, almost 24 hours of being awake. Can you remind me how you arrived to the estimated allocations for each of the secondary and elementary schools?
The allocations are actually a formula that the state uses. And so they give our projected amounts, and that's in February, we'll get a projected amount, and then we have to wait till after the May revise to see that that's final. So June is when we know the number has maintained and not decreased based off of the May revise.
Okay, so these allocations are something that we created. It's something that we have to accept.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then one more question. If at the end of the 3 years, we don't fully use this funding, what happens to it then? Can it be used somewhere else or just for, I'm assuming it's going to be just for arts, but is there an extension of that time?
No, there's 3 years to spend the money or you lose the money. That's one of the reasons why the waiver is in place, is if we're not able to hit that 80-20, then we would go forward with the waiver to be able to spend the funds in a different way. The one thing to keep in mind with the waiver is that we have to explain how we are still moving forward with trying to meet that 80-20 rule. So this funding would not roll into the general fund or into anywhere else. It would go back if not spent.
Okay, if I may ask one more question. Right now at this moment for the 2023-2024 school year, we did not use any of those funds, correct? I'm seeing the compliant multi-year waiver submission on one of those slides. Am I interpreting that correct?
You're interpreting that correct. This year, 23-24, no funds were spent. We have 2 years to spend those funds.
Okay, and I'm also seeing, if I may, President Critchfield, that we have a 2024 and 2025 allocation, also a waiver submitted. Does that mean we're also not going to be using any funds in the following school year?
No, that's just a graphic to show that we could wait till the 25-26 school year to put a waiver in for all 3 of those funding allocations. We're going to get an allocation annually. So come 24-25 in February, we'll get another projection of funding that we would need to then plan out for the next 3 years to spend. So we are not trying to spend the money in 24-25. I think that was your initial question. We are moving forward to try to make expenditures happen next year.
Okay, I see. And I know that this is an ongoing grant, like you said initially, but is there in the foreseeable future, do we know at this point for how long this is going to happen? We're going to receive these allocations. It's 27-28 is what I see at the end of your wave slide. So are we to assume that it's going to be through the 2028 school year?
The one thing to keep in mind with this funding is that it's based off of a proposition and not a one-time grant or temporary grant funding that we're typically used to receiving, where we could believe that it could end. Now, that being said, everything could change depending on what the legislature does. So there's never a guarantee for anything, but this is not like other one-time funding sources that we've received in the past.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for making that clarification for me. No further questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. And that actually, I'm going to ask one real quick before I kick it over to Ms. Stewart. So that was going to be one of my questions. Like when we talk about hiring, it's different than just one-time funds where we typically probably wouldn't want to do a bunch of hiring with one-time funds, right? So because it's a proposition, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, and that's why I would assume that the 80-20 rule is in there, right? Because they are, in essence, saying you need to spend this on staffing.
Got it. And I know that all the sites made their own plans and submitted them. Did any of the sites include anything specialized for our kids with disabilities or a SPED program in music and arts?
There wasn't anything specified as different. I think at this point, our sites are at the space of identifying what area in the arts they want to build a program around. And so that would, so for example, Craig Williams in dance, they're going to need to then think about how that can be provided to all of the students that are at their school site and what that's going to look like.
Right.
So that would include our special education population as well.
So those conversations are still happening?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Vice President, take it away.
Sorry, I have quite a few questions. First, if I'm hearing you correctly, some of the sites are in the design phase and some are in the implementation phase. Is that saying that not all sites are going to be implementing these Prop 28 funds this year?
I don't think I would say that. They all are going to be implementing their funds this year. What we're looking at is they need to develop the job descriptions if they're going to be different and post those job descriptions and do the work this year of determining how they're going to roll that out at their school site and what expenditures they're going to need for this year. So they are all in different spaces, but I foresee them moving forward next year with trying to hire staff, because if we're not able to do that, we need to look at the waiver.
So in the 24-25 year coming up, we are not going to be implementing these Prop 28 funds programs in our sites, or we are?
I believe that we will be.
So when will we know if we will be?
I don't think that I understand your question clearly.
I was under the impression that we would be using these Prop 28 funds for the upcoming school year. If we're still in the design phase and we haven't even started planning to hire sending or notifying or looking for, people to come in and take these positions. August is very close. How are we going to implement this and get this going for this upcoming school year?
We have interest from our school sites of what teachers that they want to hire. And we are looking at whether we're able to fly those positions or not.
So we're unsure if we're going to be able to roll this out this year.
Do you mind, can I jump in just for a second? I think if I can help clarify this, there are some positions we do not have in this district that sites are interested in hiring.
Correct.
And for those particular positions, if they're classified employees, for example, there's a process that we need to go through with the Personnel Commission.
Correct.
I think the intention is to start that process and get it going. So there's not, I don't think that Ms. Carter has a perfect answer for you for are we starting it right now. I think that depends on what each school site has chosen to do and what that entails.
So some schools may start this year, some may wait till the 25-26 year?
No, I don't think anyone is waiting. I think there's a different process depending on what they are trying to implement.
Okay, let me continue on. I guess my point is my frustration, and maybe I'm frustrated for no reason, because you kind of know how I get sometimes, is why do we wait so long to roll this out? If we got this funding in February, our principals and our administrators and our sites, they could not come up with these plans prior to August. So that's February, March, April. I mean, all of those months, they couldn't figure out this plan. It just seems from the community members that I'm talking to is they're frustrated because this is taxpayer money that they voted on, and they want to see this in our schools. They're very excited. You guys know they're very excited about this. And the fact that we're still at this moment when you're asking us to vote on it, unsure if when it's going to roll out, if it's going to roll out 100%, that's where I think I'm frustrated right now and not understanding why we waited so long to start doing this.
You can jump in if you like. So I understand your frustration. I understand the excitement as well of getting this started. And I think there's every intention for us to move as fast as we possibly can. We received the allocations in February, and that time span from then to the end of the year, what the sites were working on, were understanding the funding structure, but also reaching out to their schools, their community, and getting that feedback from their community. And I understand your frustration and wanting to move forward and much more quickly. But I think our school sites are now at a space where they know what they want to move forward in to be able to identify what those job descriptions are that we can put forward.
So how many of our students were surveyed on what they would like to see with this program?
Each school site did their own surveys, and they had the opportunity to either go into leadership of sites or into classrooms themselves.
Completely understand. So how many of our students were surveyed when asking about what they would like to see with this Prop 28 funding?
I don't have that number for you.
Can you please put it on our Friday memo? Because I was told that none really were. And I was also told that some people did surveys on the very last day of school. So if we've known about this since February, and we're just now saying that we're implementing it, but we're not ready, I don't understand why our administrators were not ready. That's my point of that. And I still have a few more questions. If anyone else has questions, I have a lot.
Yeah, I'll jump in for one. When it comes to hiring, what percentage do you think are us hiring our own people for these programs, and how much do you think will be contracted? Because does that fit into that 80% like contracted services too?
No.
No, so there's none of that. It's all hires.
It's all hires.
Okay, good. All right. Back to Ms. Stewart.
Looking through some of these plans, I know that in the spirit of this, it's creating new programs and it's not adding to existing. In some of these, I feel like I'm just seeing that we're adding to existing. Are all of these plans we're saying new?
All of these plans are going to need to be new. Absolutely.
So I'm just going to take the first example I have here, Mayfair High School, visual arts support, hire assistants to support visual arts, hire band assistants and materials. What is new that we're adding and is not an existing program?
I don't have that information for you, Ms. Stewart.
I don't know why we're being asked to vote, so I'm just going to say right now, I'm not even going to ask the rest of my questions. I'm voting no on this, and I feel like we should be more prepared with this. Thank you.
Let me just clarify one thing. This is not a vote. There's no vote on this. This is
It's major action items, no? It's just a discussion?
what you are doing is preparing an annual report, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a vote on the annual report. It's providing a presentation so that you know what is happening, but the requirement and the vote is on the annual report. So we're required to tell the state what we've spent our money on, or if we've spent our money on anything at this point. So this is the first year of the 3 years, and that report is that one-page item that explains that. That's what we're voting on, and we'll do that again next year.
So voting on the
Okay.
one page.
So on that page, I see it's the, the narrative, the number of full-time equivalent teachers, the number, that page. These were all zero for the 23-24. What are the numbers for this year then? How are we expected to vote when there's no numbers? We're voting on last year's?
You vote on last year, so we do this at the end of the year. So
Okay.
the expectation is that in the next annual report, there will be numbers in there.
No, I get that part of it now. I didn't get it right now, but so we're voting on last year, so I understand that. But for this year, I feel like we need to come back and revisit this. I really do. This is something that the community is very into. They want to see it on the website. They want to see some of these answers. And I know we're giving them like a generic broad outlook, but we really want to know, what are they doing with their site funding? What are they spending their money on? Who did they survey? Because if they didn't survey students, that's not right. Those are the people that we should be surveying to ask them what they would like to see. I know Bellflower has the mariachi band coming. That sounds amazing. Who was asked about it? Were parents asked about it? I've been told different sites did it differently, and I understand we're kicking it back to the sites to do it, but we are the oversight. So how did they do it? How did they survey? Who did they ask? Did they ask? I don't know. But from what I'm hearing, it just doesn't sound like it was planned out very well. It seems like, I don't know. I think we need to revisit that. I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Thank you. Oh, one more question. I know we've talked about having a VAPA person. Again, that is going to fall under, I believe you said, secondary education services, or we don't have our own VAPA director here in the district. Where does that fall in the organizational chart? I think you said.
We do not currently have a VAPA coordinator. If we were to have a VAPA coordinator, that would fall on the instructional side of the house.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. I'm going to kick over to Maya. I think Myra has a question. Ms. Garza?
Yes. Thank you, President Critchfield. My question is about how are we going to go out and get these certificated teachers that we need for this following school year? What's the plan?
The plan is to draft the job description if it's for classified staff, and that will need to run through the Personnel Commission. The other would be to draft the job description for certificated and fly that through EdJoin.
Okay. So our classified one would have to go through Personnel Services, and then what happens to it after that?
The Personnel Commission would need to review the job description, and they approve that, and then we're able to move forward with that hiring process.
And so once it comes back to us, what do we do with it? Do we post it on
It goes on EdJoin, and then we screen the individuals that are there, and we need to do the ranking system, and then we have interviews and then hire.
How quickly of a turnaround are we looking at then?
It does take some time. It would take a couple of months.
Couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's where the frustration that that Board Member Stewart is expressing, because I agree with her. Some of these parents have told us that they were polled at the end of the school year. Actually, some of these parents were polled one day before they left school. So, having these types of polls so late in the school year, their students aren't even thinking about that. They're not in the right mind. I'm hoping that going forward, we can maybe make a better plan with more time, so that way, like, Board Member Stewart is saying, we are giving our students and our families enough time to give their, choices and be heard. Also, one other question I have is, how many of our schools have submitted a plan? Have all of our schools submitted a plan?
All of the schools have submitted a plan for their 3 years.
Okay. Is there any way that we can get maybe a detailed report by school to see what it is like? I agree with Board Member Stewart. How many kids were polled? Parents, what were their requests?
I can definitely look into that. I think I hear your frustration, and that the school sites may have done it in different ways. But what I think I'm hearing mostly is the desire for more oversights of what exactly the school site is going to do. So
that, and if we can expedite any part of this process, so that way we have something that is in addition and not supplants what is currently on those campuses, I think that would help us understand, and that we are moving forward. Because I think, and I'm just of the opinion that, actions are really going to speak louder than our words, especially when it comes to these types of programs.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Dr. Alhassan.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm excited to see that students who came and spoke and really wanted this program, that it's going to be coming to fruition. I know the process takes time because of the legalities we have to follow, since it's a proposition funded from the state. But I wanted to ask, are we going to be able to use the funds for much needed uniforms and instruments?
if that is within that 20%, they would be able to use the funds.
Because last year, I was approached by the band director at Bellflower High School in desperate need of new uniforms. I don't know if that ever happened, or did they get those uniforms?
I believe they did, and it was under different funding.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Bonnie, thank you. I know it's a lot of work, and I know I share the frustration as my colleagues do, but I also commend, I know giving ownership to sites and having them make those plans is very important, and but the oversight is, especially with this one, because the community is very excited about this, and we want to make sure that it's done properly, and you know, there's a little bit of waiting involved, but I would recommend more continuing conversations with the board. So I would recommend, Lisa, if you could create a committee for these funds, and I would say include, if any of my colleagues are up to being on that, to meet with Lisa and staff on this on a regular basis.
I'm going to be honest, I'm on like 5 committees. Like, I don't want to take on committees. I give respect to the sites. I understand that they need to come up with the plans. I do. But I guess this is an example we've had since I've been on this board of there's a lot put on the sites, and I understand that. But I also think that we should be top-down driven as where we are still asking in this for this information. It should be unacceptable to you guys that they can't formulate a plan in 5 months. That's the way I feel. So I can get on a committee and try to do things for them, but at the end of the day, it's their program. They should be asking their students, their parents. It probably wasn't done correctly, and we need to oversight that on not just this, but other things that are that important that we know our community is asking about. And so that's how I feel. So, I mean, I guess I can be on 8 committees, but I really don't want to be, I'll be honest.
Well, I mean, it's open to the whole board if anybody would like to be on a committee for oversight, or if you could maybe develop a plan for continued oversight for the board. Obviously, having a couple board members there would be helpful if anybody want, because I'm on quite a few committees myself. So if anybody would like to be a part of that, I would definitely appreciate it. And working with the superintendent and just making sure that we're informed and we know what's going on, so these conversations run a little bit smoother.
I'll be on the committee, President Critchfield.
All right, we got one. Thank you, Ms. Garza. Dr. O'Husson? Oh, she pushed the button. I thought you were volunteering. All right. So thank you again, Bonnie. Really appreciate it. And at this time, the board will be taking a 10-minute recess, and we will re-adjourn and open roughly 7:45. Thank you. Welcome back. It is 7:45, and we will continue with our open session meeting. I do apologize. We actually weren't done with that item. Do I have a motion to approve item 11.2?
You have that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Dr. O'Hesson?
Aye.
Mrs. Garza?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. Moving on to our third major action item of the evening is 11.3, professional services agreement with,
11.2, please.
All right. 11.2, resolution promoting student well-being and academic focus through a phone-free school environment. Do I have any questions from the board? Ms. Armstrong.
I just have a few simple questions. Will the staff participate in this phone-free school environment, or is it just for the students? Lisa?
So if at the very bottom of the resolution, it's basically providing the district 120 days to come up with the plan. So at this point in time, what we're asking for is a resolution to support staff in working with our community to develop a plan to bring back to you for approval. So at this point in time, I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
Okay, so you're going to probably do a survey or poll and get the parents involved, and so that we can see how we're going to implement the proposed plan? Well, we have to create it first.
We need to create it first.
And then create how you're going to implement it, and you're going to make sure you involve these parents, because, sometimes, parents use that phone to calm kids down.
So on the very last line of that, be it resolved, it says staff will present a draft policy to the board for discussion and approval within 120 days. So to come up with that draft, we will have some community input, yes.
Thank you so much. That's it.
Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. And I should have set this item up a little bit. This resolution tonight is just our statement of intention to create the policy under time. And I actually been working on this and actually in collaboration with Dr. O'Hesson. So thank you, Dr. Sue, for that. I know a lot of school districts are going this route to address the problems that are caused by social media and overusing cell phones on campus. So this is something that I hope that as we discuss can be a very thoughtful discussion on how we both prepare our students for a competitive global workforce and not demonize technology, but also address the problems that our teachers are faced with every day and improve our campus cultures and our well-being of our students. Any other questions from the board regarding this resolution?
I just have a comment in support of the resolution. that I know that there's a bill, actually Assembly Bill 272, where they're actually looking at a ban, a law to cell phone ban at use of school, but did not offer any specific plans. So they're really leaving it up to school districts to develop their own plans. But this is something that's going to be, I believe, coming down as mandated by the state because of this strong warning that the Surgeon General had put out in regards to the harm and the mental health of children and teens in relationship to using social media. So I just want to comment on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Alhassan. And yeah, I believe the Assembly bill, it passed the Assembly, now it's a Senate bill. And one of the things that it's going to mandate is for school boards to address the problem by 25-26 school year. And one of the things that's in it is with enough community input. So I think that's going to be another challenge over the next 120 days by getting that community input and making sure that our policy reflects what our community wants to see in our schools. Any further questions? Ms. Garza, any questions on this item?
None, President Critchfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
You have a second.
Thank you, thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Dr. Alhassan?
Aye.
Mrs. Garza?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. Motion passes. Third action item of the evening is 11.3, professional service agreement with Dennis Wooliver Kelly. Any questions or comments from the board? Ms. Armstrong.
Just have a few questions. What was the process that led up to choosing Kelly?
Good evening. Thank you, Board Member Armstrong. Because of the tight timeline surrounding the potential bond for potentially November, we had a need to identify a firm right away with a significant amount of expertise in DWK, and in particular, the attorney who would be working with our district have a significant amount of experience in this area. They are affiliated with CSBA, and they also have experience with quick processes.
Okay. Did you interview any other companies or agencies? Or, before you chose him, did you interview anybody else? Any other companies or agencies before you chose Kelly?
We had also considered using bond counsel from the previous bond in addition to this one, but ultimately, after consulting with Ms. Azevedo, this is the firm that we are recommending.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Ms. Armstrong. Any other questions? Dr. Alhassan.
So is this putting the cart before the horse? Because don't we have to approve it first before we have counsel? Approve that we're doing a bond?
So part of the process that we go through to develop that resolution, the next step that we need to provide for you is to work with a bond counsel to formulate that resolution for you.
Thank you, Dr. Alhassan. Any further questions from the board? Ms. Garza?
None, thank you.
Great. And thank you for being so expeditious in getting this going. I feel like we were talking about a bond and potentially exploring that option so many months ago, but then, like most things, it sneaks up on you, and all of a sudden you're in this this timeline. So thank you for all the work that's been put into that. Do I have a motion to approve item 11.3, professional services agreement with Dennis Wooliver Kelly?
You have that motion.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Roll call, please.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Dr. Alhassan?
Abstain.
Ms. Garza?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. Item passes. The fourth major action item of the evening is 11.4, approval of Assistant Superintendent Special Education and Student Support Services contract. Oh, this is probably got to read the whole thing, huh? All right. Hold on. Government Code Section 54953C3 requires that the following statement be read in open session and before action is taken on the employment agreement for the Assistant Superintendent. The Brown Act requires that the Board of Education make an oral summary of a recommendation for final action on the salary schedules, or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits of a local agency executive. Consistent with this requirement, the board provides the following oral summary of salary and fringe benefits as outlined in the on-employment agreement for Assistant Superintendent between the Bellflower Unified School District and Alma Ulloa. Am I saying that name right? Ulloa? Yeah. The term is tentative date of July 18, 2024 through June 30th, 2026. Salary of $188,224.85. Fringe benefits, participation in the STRS retirement program, participation in the same health and welfare benefits program provided to other certificated management employees, $8,000 annual stipend for any travel and business related expenses, including mileage, $1,250 annual stipend for a doctoral degree. The district may pay for the dues for relevant professional organizations of Ms. Eula's choice, subject to board approval. Do I have any questions or comments from the board this evening? Ms. Armstrong?
Yes, just a few questions. I've already talked to the interim superintendent, Ms. Acevedo. So this position is basically just replacing a previous assistant superintendent, correct?
That is correct. The job duties are very similar.
Mm-hmm. And is this, because when we're adding, well, we're not adding a position, but when we're having all these positions, I always think about will we be able to sustain it, but it's already in the budget because you're just putting this individual in this position. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Any further questions? No? Do I have a motion to approve item 11.4?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Dr. Alhassan?
Aye.
Mrs. Garza?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. Item passes. The fifth major action item this evening is 11.5, approval of a contract for general counsel legal service and amendment to existing legal service contract with Olivares Madruga Law Organization. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Go for it, Ms. Armstrong.
I just wanted to know who initiated this amendment to the existing contract, and when and why.
So this was actually initiated.
Can I have Lisa answer?
Oh.
Thank you.
We were notified that there is going to be an upcoming change of service with our general counsel with the current agreement that you have with this particular company. And so this is an amendment to your initial agreement with them.
And what was the process that led up to this? I mean, the amendment. Okay, I'll wait till we get to the next one. So the law firm contacted you saying that they needed an amendment.
No, our current general counsel informed us that there would be a change to our contract. And so we moved forward with that amendment.
Okay. And that amendment is? I know it's in the board book. I just want to hear it.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking me.
What is the exact amendment that you want to change in the contract? What's the change in the contract?
Your general counsel services are no longer being provided if this is approved by your current company that you have approved.
general counsel services.
Okay, will no longer be provided by OMLO if we approve this.
That is correct.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. And if I can, before I go on to Ms. Stewart, I'm going to refer to our general counsel. Maybe you can give us some background on this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this item's coming before the board, and obviously it's an election. If you choose to approve it this evening, what it would do is it would amend the existing contract with Olivares Madruga Law Organization to where they would no longer provide the general counsel services, which I have been doing for that law firm as they are my law firm currently, and it will bifurcate those duties with me continuing on as as general legal counsel under my law firm of Sarega Law, and Olivares Madruga Law Organization will continue to provide the legal services that they've been providing to date, whether it's related to special education, personnel, all the issues that they've been dealing with up to this point. The reason for the bifurcation was because at my current law firm, I was also involved in litigation matters and basically business outside of Bellflower Unified School District. Due to some personal commitments, I could no longer participate in any of those. So this was the structure that allowed me to continue to serve as general counsel for Bellflower Unified and provide the services that I've been providing, while also allowing the law firm to continue working in the capacity that they have. In simplest terms, it maintains what's been going on at the district in terms of legal services. It just splits it into two different law firms, reassigns the general counsel services to this new law firm, Sarega Law. I keep doing exactly what I've been doing up to date, and Olivares Madruga continues working on the legal matters that they've been working on to date. The reason for that is it allows the district to continue operations as have been thus far, and it allows me to continue working with my possibly soon-to-be former colleagues as I've been doing thus far, because there is a relationship there, there is an internal structure that allows for efficiency in the providing of legal services to the district.
Great, thank you for that background. Dr. Alhassan, you have a question?
Yes. So how was the board notified of the process?
So the board was notified via this amendment. It's an amendment requested by OMLO for their contract, and you're basically voting on it this evening. The notification comes when the amendment is presented to the school district, and they in turn present it to the board for approval.
So you contacted me and told me that you were planning on starting your own company, as well as running for city council for Anaheim.
Yes.
So, and you had also told me that you had informed Ms. Armstrong.
Yes.
And so I had called our board president to get clarification of how this process was happening. So he knew about it also.
So the board was notified as a whole board because it was informational.
How was it notified as a whole board? Because we didn't meet about this.
No, I contacted every board member to provide them the information. No vote was taken, no discussion was had with board members in terms of opinions or anything like that. So it was not a violation of the Brown Act, if that's what's being inferred. It was just informational to let the board know that this item would be coming before them, much like you would get in your Friday memo.
Wouldn't have this been better as far as a process that was presented to us in closed session and then brought out to the public, because this is a public, actually, their funds are public funds. And so we had gone through the selection process for hiring OMO as you being part of the process, but yet we weren't then informed of you leaving until I got the call. So I don't know about anybody else, but I got the call. And I felt that that was something that should have been discussed as a group.
So this wouldn't qualify for closed session. It's not a matter that can be heard in closed session. So the reason that you're having it before you this evening is because that discussion can take place. Again, the board is under no obligation to accept the amendment. That's within the board's authority. So this is the forum to conduct that discussion, basically answer any questions that might be had.
So when we went through the interview process, Board President Crutchfield was with me in the process. We had a list of different firms that we actually interviewed. And you were selected, and second choice was Orbach and Huff. The reason why is that we had one individual attorney working for the district, and it didn't work out very well. So we wanted a firm that actually represented the district versus one individual. And that was something that was agreed upon the entire board. So I don't understand how there's a change now all of a sudden. I don't understand that.
Thank you, Dr. O'Hesson. Ms. Stewart.
Sorry, I think at that time it was agreed upon with the whole board, and then we signed our contract with AMLO. And then we got Mr. Sorega here, and he's doing an amazing job, and he's been here every meeting, which is something we haven't had. We're cutting our costs tremendously as far as lawyer fees, and we think he's doing a good job. So it's an amendment here. You can vote yes or no, but I am completely in favor of this because, again, it keeps the stability and the consistency of our district intact, and he's doing a good job. So I don't know why we're even questioning that. We have had zero problems up until this point, and I think this is great, and I support this 100%.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Ms. Armstrong.
Well, in the beginning, when council was tasked with sitting in all of our meetings for the duration, I suggested that we hired general counsel on staff because it would be, I thought it would be more sustainable because, but my suggestion was ignored. You weren't here. And so the previous attorney was paid $200 per hour and didn't sit in our meetings unless there were special circumstances, and it was said that it was too much money to expend. So, you know, how much are we currently paying OMLO to sit in our meetings?
I'll refer to staff for that.
I'm asking Lisa.
I don't have that information in front of me. I'd have to get that back to you.
Is it more than $200?
I would estimate that it's more than $200, but again, I don't have that number in front of me.
Okay. So this information, you know, just the thing is, you know, I'm looking at his contract. The thing is, it's in the next section because if I vote down this, you know, they probably will vote to let it, you know, have this bifurcation done. But the thing is, this is not, I don't know how we're going to be able to sustain this if we keep Andrew on as an independent provider for us as general counsel and have OMLO. So my question to Andrew now is, Andrew, so you have your DBA listed, and you have your address, your place of business. And I was looking at your contract, but that's the next section. The thing is, how many attorneys do you have on staff? Because what's going to happen if you're not going to be able to come to the meetings?
So to answer that question, the whole point of the structure was to allow me to continue as general counsel in my sole capacity. The point was to actually try to save the district money, and I know that the next item coming up will be discussed as well, so I can get into that at that time. But the point is, the amount of money that is currently being paid for my services now goes to OMLO. That money will no longer go to OMLO, but instead will go to Sorega Law. So there's no change in necessarily pay in terms of the structure of it. The difference is, and I can speak on this item if you like, but I chose to go with a flat fee because my personal experience has been that when you bill by the hour, the incentive is to bill as much as you can because that's the whole point of making money. The way I've operated for this district thus far is I've always been there to provide the services, but I've not charged for all the services that I provide because it's my opinion that when you deliver a product to a client and you do your best job, that's when they appreciate the fact that you're doing the work. But I also am conscious of the fact, having been an elected official, that this is public money. So because of that, there's months where I haven't billed 10 to 30 hours in work that I've done, conversations that I've had, strategy with meetings with regarding litigation and things of that nature. So I've always been committed to the district. The only reason that this is being proposed is because, again, of my personal commitments. I was looking to withdraw completely, but I made a commitment to Bellflower Unified to be here to provide the services to help the board in their decisions that they're making, including the previous one of districting, the bond measure, things of that nature. And it didn't sit right with me to just pick up and leave and not be able to continue the service that I said that I would commit to. So this was an option that was created to allow that to continue in the manner that it has, allow me to also do the things that I'm doing in other parts of my life, while at the same time not impacting the district and the services that are delivered. So again, it's a decision for the board. It's under your consideration, but that's why this was created the way it was. And yeah, I mean, that's as plainly as I can put it.
Thank you, Mr. Zuriga. And yeah, I'll make a comment before and Myra, I know you got your hand up. I'm going to come to you right after, I promise. I do want to make a comment on this because I think it's a testament to your ability to have that relationship with AMLO. So Dr. Sue is right. When we were on the committee and we did interview, AMLO was the number one choice out of all the RFPs. And you were in that meeting, and since then you've done great for our district. And I really appreciate you working with AMLO to make sure we still have the bench and we still have the support from the law firm, while we still get to keep you as our committed general counsel. So thank you for doing all that work to make that possible. I think it says a lot about your dedication to this district, but also your ability to have relationships that are productive and healthy with your now former law firm. So thank you. And I will say one thing, I know this comes up a lot, but I just want to say in 21-22, our legal costs were $1 million. In 22-23, when we got on the board, we got it down to $546,000. This past year that just finished, it was $453,000. So we're talking about a $500,000 difference from when we did it the way we were just talking about. So thank you for helping us solve these litigations earlier and work and do the work in the mediation so we can avoid litigation and not just carelessly fight families all the time, and really solve the problems. And looking forward to even more decreased costs as we have more support staff to really address some of the issues that come up throughout the year. So I feel like we're on a really great track, and I think that this trending line of $1 million to 546 to 453 is only going to get better. And I just really appreciate all the work that's been done in keeping those costs down. So thank you. And I did promise Ms. Garza, so Ms. Garza, take it away.
Thank you, President Critchfield. I want to echo what you are saying. And I also agree with my colleague, Board Member Stewart. This is the best way that we can continue to meet those needs for our district. I can tell you from being married to a consultant who has their own firm, this can be easily even more upwards of $1 million+ if we don't go this route. It's I don't think that anyone would understands how expensive it can get if it goes from hour to hour. And for Mr. Zuriga to offer this to us and be able to make that move, so that it benefits everyone. I think I commend you. Thank you. I agree with President Critchfield. Thank you for doing that for us and making sure that we still meet our obligations, with these litigations that are anticipating and pending, and for having worked so, hard to bring our costs down to at least the minimum. So I'll say some more, later on in the next item as well, but I can absolutely am a witness of this every day, that when my husband himself bills, it's not just a drop in the bucket.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Dr. Alhassan.
So the latest numbers I received was that we have spent on legal services is $155,932. And for special ed, it's $179,802. A total of $300,035,734. So this isn't even the full year of expenditures.
What time frame are you talking about?
I'm talking about from July to May. Yeah, so we didn't even have June and July. It's not a full year.
So what's is that from our documents, the same ones that we all get?
This is what I just got from Ms. Azevedo.
Yeah.
In regards to, I wanted the breakdown of services from OLMO. This is
Right.
just OLMO.
Right.
Okay. This is something that Ms. Armstrong had asked, and I had the documents to share that, so I wanted to do that.
Right. Ms. Stewart.
I think we just made the point there that we've only spent $379,000 and we only have 2 months left. So it's not 1.2 million, it's not 500, 600,000. So I think you just made the point for us. And honestly, if we're using OMLO for special ed or different services, they will bill us by the hours or however. If we don't use them for anything, they don't bill us, correct?
That is correct. They provide us a breakdown.
Right. So to say that it's going to be more because we have 2 people or we have this or that, if one person is doing the work and the other isn't, then they're not billing us, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Ms. Armstrong.
So Andrew's going to be doing the general services. What is OMLO going to be? I just need to hear that.
Your other services like special education.
And so I want to know, Andrew, will you, if you need to, will you use OMLO as a resource? Are you going to still be connected to them in any way?
Of course, and that's part of having that relationship with them. Basically, any assistance that I would need or any information that I would need, they're there to provide it because, you know, as much as it's one of those situations where it just kind of worked out this way, OMLO truly is a kind of law firm that cares about its clients. I can tell you Rick he's an amazing individual. He really does give everything to his clients. I mean, you'll find him up at 1 a.m. taking calls from city council members, dealing with issues that come up. So, you know, I think the culture that I've been a part of and that I've kind of gotten to grow into and being mentored by someone like Rick, it really is a culture of service. And we are in the public service sector. So we take that with, you know, the kind of mentality that you're there to serve, you're there to help the board in their mission of being able to provide policy and leadership for the public, which elects them to do so. That being said, I'll reiterate, I have a great relationship with OMLO, and they will always be there to help whenever needed.
Okay, and did I hear you say you have provided services without billing us in the past?
I actually do that all the time.
Wow.
So if I can give you a little backstory, you know, my parents escaped communism, came here. My father started a business, automotive business. Since I was 6 years old, I was helping him change brakes, change tires, change oil on cars, because, you know, that's how it is when you're a family new to a country trying to come up. And the one thing that I took from my father is that at the end of the day, if you provide a quality service, people will always come back. And you don't want to be like some of the other individuals in the industry that overcharge because people come, they don't know what's wrong with their car. You can tell them anything's broken and they'll be like, okay, we'll fix it. So if you're always honest and true in the service that you provide and how you provide it, people will see that. And that's what I've attempted to do during my time here at Bellflower is I don't charge for every phone call that I get. I don't charge for every strategy meeting I have regarding litigation because at the end of the day, in my opinion, That's a service that I'm providing to the district and to the board that I've committed to. So, you know, a flat fee to me is the fairest way that I can cap costs for the district, because there might be months where, you know, I'm working over 100 hours, 120 hours just for the district. That would go north of, you know, $30, $40, $50,000 just for me. But for the district, it's capped at 15. And I can tell you right now, it's one of those things that even if you were to hire in-house counsel as an employee, you're looking to spend minimum $240,000 a year on salary. You have benefits, you have retirement. Your total comp is going to go up above $300,000. The way I structured it, and you know, I might be the worst businessman in the world, but it's capped at $180 a year. It'll never go higher than that. There's no other associated costs. So I did that to be fair to the district, to continue serving as long as I can, and ultimately provide the service that I do. That being said, there might come a time where I'm no longer able to do so. At that point, the amendment allows OMLO to provide an attorney that would basically come in and sit as general counsel and continue their service. So there's no interruption on either end, the front end or the back end. Until such time as the district decides we would like to go with another law firm. And, you know, under this contract, you can do that on a moment's notice. You can just send a letter saying, hey, you're no longer our legal service provider, we're going in another direction. So you have a lot of flexibility built into it, and it really is, you know, at the discretion of the board in every sense.
So let me ask you one last question. You mentioned you work in excess of how many hours a week or month?
So I said there are months where you could end up working in excess of 100, 120 hours in a month. General billing for an attorney is between 150 to 180 hours a month, and that's billing. So you literally have to be working that time. I can't be out at lunch, you know, you can't be in the bathroom. It is time you're actually spending working. So I can tell you when I first started, to bill 8 hours, I'd be at the office 13, 14 hours a day. Just kind of part of the learning process. But, you know, the reality is when you bill by the hour, there's an incentive to inflate those numbers, to basically charge for a 30-second phone call, you charge 6 minutes because everything is done by a tenth of an hour. That's how it works in the billing world. So, you know, this was really the structure that I felt was most advantageous to the district, while also allowing me to provide those services where it would make sense for me financially as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Rega. And thank you for that, because that was one of the first things when I got on this board. I was seeing you know, people billing for more than 24 hours in a day, which I couldn't do the math on that, but there was a lot of waste in legal fees, and I'm just so glad that we fixed that problem. Dr. O'Hesson.
Thank you. I agree with you. Rick is really dedicated and devoted to OMO. So when I called him and I asked him questions in regards to why you were leaving, he told me he was under the assumption that we had all met and we had decided already to bring you on. So that was confusing to me also. So if that's the case, obviously you've already met with people and they've already decided.
I'm sorry, can you say
my
that again?
concern is,
what are you saying?
I'm saying that I spoke to Rick, and he told me that he was under the assumption that all of us had met together and decided to let go of LMO for general counsel and have Andrew stay on, but they would take over for special ed. And that was concerning to me.
So I'm not sure if that conversation was misunderstood, but at no time did I tell Rick that the district had decided to go with me and drop OMLO. First of all, that would be improper. And second of all, it's not a statement that I'd made to Rick. What I had told Rick was that I was planning on leaving due to my own personal commitments, and that this was a structure that would be able to allow me to continue serving while also allowing OMLO to continue providing the legal services that they were providing. So I don't know where that statement came from, but it's not a conversation that I've had.
Okay. That's why I was confused. That's why I'm asking the question at this point. So, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Any further questions, Ms. Garza? No?
No further questions. If I could call for the vote, please.
What time is it over there, Ms. Garza?
It is really, really early, 5:24 in the morning. I'm nearing 24 hours of being awake.
Gotcha. Call for the vote.
I make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Armstrong?
No.
Dr. Alhesson?
No.
Mrs. Garza?
Absolutely yes.
Ms. Stewart?
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Critchfield?
Absolutely yes. Item passes. Moving on to the sixth major action item this evening is 11.6, contract approval for general counsel legal services. Any questions or comments from the board? Do I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Hudson.
The flat rate of $15,000 a month. So let's say you work 20 hours that month. We're still committed to pay the $15,000. So your hour would be breaking down, if we're sitting here in this meeting, to $1,200 an hour.
So I've never had a month where I've worked 20 hours. If the district gets down to that point where legal services is only needed for 20 hours, I would say that the district is in very good shape. That has never been the case. I doubt it'll ever be the case. But the reality is, that's the way the structure works. If there's some months where I'm working 30, 40 hours over what would be, the breakdown in price per hour, that's not money that I make. That's money that the district saves. If there's months where I work less, that's kind of how it balances out. And the $15,000, again, is, my personal opinion, a very low amount for a general counsel in a school district. I can tell you there's other school districts where just general counsel, aside from all the other attorneys that work on litigation for them, bill $40,000, $50,000 a month.
And how many school districts have you worked for in the past?
So this is the first district that I've sat on general counsel as.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. Ms. Stewart.
You may not have this answer, Ms. Salcevedo, but have you ever, since you've been on for the last 6 months, seen a month where we were only using 20 hours of legal services?
Not in the time that I've been sitting here.
Thank you. And I've been on this board for now almost a year and a half, and I have never seen a month where we spent less than $15,000 for sure, probably less than $50,000. And to say that 20 hours, I don't even know why we are talking about that, considering that's not going to happen. That's just a hypothetical to, I guess, talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Yeah, I believe when we look at our legal service tracker, I can't remember the last time there was a month where it was only 15,000. So thank you for doing that. You probably are the worst businessman, but it's to the district's advantage, and it's more money for the kids. So thank you. And you do put in a lot of work, so I appreciate it. I am a little disappointed in the mischaracterization of the past finances when it comes to legal, because we have done such a great job in getting those costs down and addressing problems early. But the facts are the facts. Ms. Garza.
If I can call for the vote, please.
Yes, ma'am. Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Roll call, please.
Ms. Armstrong?
No.
Dr. Alhesson?
No.
Mrs. Garza?
Absolutely yes.
Ms. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Critchfield?
Yes. Motion passes. Do we have any items to withhold from the consent agenda this evening? Mister, go for it.
$12.16.
What's the item name?
Amendment to the annual contracts.
Listing and agreements, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Any other items to withhold this evening? Ms. Garza?
None, President Critchfield.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda and withhold items 12.16, annual amendment to the contract list?
So moved.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Hessen. Roll call, please.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Dr. Hessen?
Aye.
Mrs. Garza?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. The first item withheld this evening is 12.16, annual amendment to contract. Ms. Armstrong.
Thank you, President. I just have a few questions. 01, it says Fireplace Inc. Is S'more, is that the like website you can create the newsletter and links
Yes.
and everything like that?
Yes.
Is that going to be available to the staff at the site level or just the district?
I believe it's available at the site as well, but let me check on that for you.
Okay. I mean, I don't really know how to use it, but the people who use it say it's really easy and actually fun to use. So it would be nice if it's available at the site level too. And then the National Demographic Services consultation, I see we have an increased cost for the next school year. And it is a renewal, but can you explain to me how this service will be used by you?
So because services overlap into the month of July, it then rolls on to the 24-25 school year. So those services are just an overlap, a carryover from the project that we just finished with them.
Okay, thank you so much. And my last question, for the Leaders Institute Consultant Services, explain to me what that service will look like, please.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for permission to keep a little bit of that secret. This is an activity for our administrative team at the Advance this year.
Okay.
So it's a little
Okay.
bit of a surprise. I can whisper to you later.
Okay, sounds great. As long as, we're, providing some training for our staff, I think it's great that.
Yes,
I was
ma'am.
just being nosy.
Okay.
We'll talk later then. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Any other questions on the item, board members? No? Do I have a motion to approve item 12.16?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Yes, you have a second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Dr. Hessen?
Aye.
Mrs. Garza?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. We'll now move on to board communications. This is a time where the Board of Education members communicate and report out. Let's begin with Board Member Armstrong. Actually, do you mind? That's right after. Do you mind if we start with?
Go with Myra.
Is that right? But Ms. Garza, would you like to go first with your board report?
Yes, that would be fine. Thank you so much, colleagues. Good evening, everyone. I am joining you tonight from downtown Camper by Scandic in Stockholm, Sweden, room 837. Tonight, I am a board member for you, and tomorrow I will be supporting my son's academic decathlon team and judging part of their competition here in Sweden. So that is why I'm here. I say this because this is exactly the type of competition I would love to see our BUSD students become involved in the near future. Hopefully I can continue, I can begin some talks with our staff and also with our interim superintendent on seeing how we can get that process going. I also want to take this opportunity to formally thank our tech team and Carrie, who worked with me to make my joining our meeting possible. Thank you guys. You're an amazing team. You're so patient with me and you worked through all those, little kinks and bumps we had. And I would also be remiss if I didn't thank our general counsel, Mr. Saraiga, for supporting myself and our interim superintendent, as well as her staff, after I reached out to both of them and agendizing my attendance according to California Government Code to meet compliance with the Brown Act. It is said ignorance is bliss, but it certainly wouldn't have absolved me of my responsibility in communicating with the appropriate people with enough time to exercise my due diligence so I can meet my board obligations with the rest of my colleagues. So thanks all around. I think that we have made a great team. At least, on my behalf, I'm very appreciative of all the time and effort that goes behind the scenes every time, every other week, and on special meeting days, where everybody pulls together for all of this to happen on behalf of our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Ms. Armstrong.
Well, I've been enjoying my family and being immersed in historical and cultural teachings and learning. And as a California teacher, I attended the National Education Association Delegate Assembly to embark on national educational issues. And as a state delegate, I do work throughout the year, and this year will be a very busy year for the state delegates because our meeting was cut short, but we still have a lot of business to handle. And so, some things are common knowledge to some and then some not to others. And I'm saying this because when I was out in Philadelphia for the representative assembly meeting, I don't eat Philly cheesesteaks. And so, I was like, gosh, I'm in Philadelphia. I got to get me a Philly cheesesteak. So anyway, I know some people just love it, but it didn't resonate with me. So I had to try multiple chili fish cheesesteaks while I was out there. And it was something else I didn't realize. I didn't realize that it was, I guess, Italian. So I finally went to this town. I guess it's Little Italy. I don't know, an Italian town. I don't know. But I went to the famous Geno's that is supposed to be #1 for the Philly cheesesteaks, and they prepared some for me so I could bring home with the directions on how to warm them up when I got home. So anyway, there was Geno's, which is #1 all the time, and diagonally it was Pat's, which is the #2. And what was funny is that they had a person out there taking pictures of the crowds that were out there. But anyway, I don't really eat those sandwiches, you guys. I didn't know it was Italian, I mean, did you guys know it? I mean, I didn't. But anyway, I had a fun time, even though I was working. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Dr. Alhassan.
Thank you. This month is the anniversary, as you know, of the 34th signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is the second largest civil rights act passed. And I was involved in many events this month, actually. I attended the Disability Pride Raising Flag, where my friend, City Councilwoman, invited me to come down and be part of our large group of individuals, both disabled and able-bodied, to raise the Disability Pride flag in Long Beach. So that was a a great event and hearing from many representatives about having their voices heard. And this is really what it's all about, as well as accommodations and access. And it surprises me in today's date, I was reading at CSBA that the education department considers IDEA, which is actually passed to support students with disabilities, updates are as more states miss the mark. So in regards to the number of states and other entities categorized as needs assistance under federal special education requirements, ticked up fiscal 2022 at a time when the complex system of measuring compliance and student progress is considered by some as overdue for improvements, and there are signs that the U.S. Education Department agrees, as officials are saying changes need to be considered. Some 38 states, territories, and District of Columbia were categorized as needed assistance with implementing special education requirements and improving students' outcomes for the year evaluated as for 2 or more consecutive years, according to a list of state determinations issued by the U.S. Department of Education. On June 21st, that number is up from 35 the year before. This year's determinants were based on the fiscal year 2022 data submitted by the states for state categorization of needing assistance for 2 or more consecutive years under the Accountability Framework for Individuals with Disabilities Act education. The Education Department must take 1 or more enforcement actions. These include requiring the state to access technical assistance, designating the state as a high-risk guarantee, and designating that the state has set aside funds to improve lower performing areas. So with that in mind, as we're moving forward in our academic year for 24-25, we need to, and I'm excited about hiring our new associate assistant, to the superintendent on special ed. I think it's badly needed, and I think our students as well as our teachers and community would benefit from this. And then finally, I wanted to talk about, which I've been talking about for a long time, but I'd like to see it happen, because now it's going to be a mandate that California high schools requirement balance a checkbook, manage credit, and avoid scams. I think it's really important to teach our youth, again, with social media, all the information out there, false information out there, in regards to being able to make correct decisions to their finances. I think it supports them being model citizens as well as supporting our economy as a whole. So this bill, California students will have to complete a course in pocketbook economics, balancing a checkbook, managing credit cards, avoiding scams to graduate from high school. Under a bill that will become law, state lawmakers announced on June 27th. So this would be a bill that would be implemented for the school year, and the courses we need to begin on 2027. But I'm hoping that we can take a head start in taking a look at how we can best support our students graduating. This was actually brought up in this is because of my longevity here, was brought up a student group under Dr. Jacobs, that students were requesting to have this support. So you can imagine it's been a long time and the need is still there, and even more so now. So I just want to emphasize those 2 key points. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alhassan. Vice President Stewart.
Good evening. Since our last meeting, I attended a foundation committee meeting. We're finalizing the details of this organization, and we should finish in the next few months, so we're really excited about that. Monday, I attended the Personnel Commission meeting. They appointed an interim director while the position is being flown, and I am optimistic that we are moving in the right direction, and I support them, and I support CSCA in its collaboration with this board. Tuesday, I attended the Cal Apps meeting. We had 2 students attend the National Skills USA competition. One Cal Apps student from Linwood was competing in the restaurant part of it, and you met the BUSD student, a middle school from Mayfair, competed in the preferred speech competition. So we are just really proud of them and their achievements this year. This week, I will be going to the California Association of Black School Educators Conference. I'm really looking forward to learning more and collaborating with educators committed to advancing equity for our Black students. And then finally, at our June 20th board meeting, PTA presented our board and our district with a letter relating to the permanent superintendent position. They believe, as well as other community members that I have spoken to, that selecting an effective superintendent must be the board's top priority, and I agree. They believe it is critical that the district rebuild confidence with students, parents, and the community we serve, and I would just like to give my thoughts on that matter since it's becoming a topic of discussion. I think at this juncture, the question is, what would be the best results for students and families? Is it having that engagement process in a search, or is it securing a leader that we know is strong and capable right now? I was elected and I was trusted to make critical decisions to move our district forward, and it is my opinion that we have already found that leader. It has been 6 months since we appointed Mrs. Lisa Acevedo as interim superintendent. I have seen the changes that she is implementing and the work that she has done in her time so far, and I believe that she should be our next superintendent, effective immediately. Having the title of superintendent gives her the ability to be a more sufficient leader with more support, respect, stability, and consistency, and it also brings more stability to our district. I kind of think of it like a classroom. There's a big difference when you have a sub in the classroom versus that teacher, and I think that she should be our superintendent and be in charge and get that respect that she deserves. Most interims are in the position for an average of 6 months, and some states even have laws on how long that interim can serve. Watching her work as interim and placing her as superintendent without a search is not abnormal, and I believe appointing her is the path that we should take. Mrs. Acevedo has worked in our district for 29 years. She knows the ins and outs of our district, and she takes pride in making it better. If you talk to her, she really cares about this district, and she's been here a long time. The programs that she has been a leader of, such as CalApps, are very successful, and her leadership style is successful. She's secured grants and funding that have helped our programs and our facilities tremendously. We cannot predict the future, but we can make the right decision now in the present, and I don't care if we have her for 3 months, a year, 2 years, or 20 years. I think she's the right person for the job at this moment. Mrs. Acevedo has shown me that she has the characteristics of a great superintendent. Nearly every element of a superintendent's job description requires high-quality communication skills, which she has. Strong communication and relationship building skills should be a priority, and she has that. She has built strong relationships in her tenure here in Bellflower with the public employees and our community partners, and more communication has taken place within our district and board than I have seen in my term so far. She is a visionary thinker and focuses on problem solving and solutions. She's thinking outside of the box, and she's already creating positive changes that I see. She knows how to use her relationships and support systems to create positive momentum, and a superintendent needs to be flexible in dynamic environments, and I believe that she has shown that in her approach and her ability to collaborate. She's patient. She genuinely cares about our district. She wants to do a good job. She takes pride in doing a good job. And I believe she understands our board members, our unique traits, our good and bad. You see, I have bad times too. And our personalities, but she's bringing out the best of our board dynamics. A good superintendent needs to have emotional intelligence and empathy, and I believe Mrs. Acevedo has shown she has the emotional intelligence to hear and validate each group's concerns. Superintendents can create solutions that produce positive outcomes for everyone in their district, and I believe we are seeing that currently with the hires, the new budgeting, and the things that are going on in our district. And you guys don't see all of it. That's just some that you're seeing. Mrs. Acevedo is a collaborative leader. She communicates transparently. She has lived experiences to make inclusive decisions. She embraces challenges and works super hard. She has new innovative ideas like bringing back APs in the middle schools, having them have kind of their own identity, hiring APs at our elementary schools, giving our teachers and our staff support, keeping our TOSAs in place, our dual immersion goals. And we have talked on many occasions about how test scores are her main priority, which we don't get to talk enough about, but we are lacking. We can improve, and I know she wants to do that. She has constructive relationships with us, and her cross-collaboration and teamwork is helping propel the district's progress towards transformational goals, in my opinion. She wears many hats, but she helps keep the focus clear on our students. She has a clear vision for our district. She is placing new and innovative leaders in our organizational chart. She is an instructional leader and has experience in the classroom. She is a good manager as well as a good listener, and she's not afraid to take risks and make commitments. And she is, in my opinion, the best person for the job based on the work that I have seen and her ability to lead. So I will repeat my original question. I know we have had people asking about superintendent placement and interims. Would it be best for our student and families to start a search process or secure a leader who we know is already strong and capable and doing the job right now? I believe it is, and so I believe we should be discussing this as a board at our next meeting. I'd like to see that on our agenda, and I would like to request this on our agenda and hope that this starts the discussion for placing her permanently. I know I may be, I don't know what everyone else thinks. I don't know what to say, but I just want to finish it by saying that, again, I was elected to be true to myself and what I think, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to any of our unions, our PTA, or anybody like that, but I believe she's the best person for the job, and I want to say that because that's what you elected me to do. You elected to trust me and for me to say what I think, and we have different information than you guys do sometimes, and so I'm going to start speaking publicly because I think it's the right decision. I think she should be our next superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. That was good. I think I'm blushing for you. Lisa, you're amazing. I'm not gonna do a whole page on it, but we can start having that conversation because it is a top priority, and we do need to look at the future of our district, which I am very excited about. And a lot of that's thanks to you and Ryan. You've been doing great, and Bonnie, everybody. I was on the George Couros. Do I say his last name right? Couros. His podcast, and he said a quote that really kind of like resonated with me, and it was, happiness is always have something to look forward to. And I think that's true, and I think what makes me happy and fulfilled about being on this board is I am so looking forward to all of the great things that we are going to create here because of all the hard work that's being done every day. So thank you, and thank you to my colleagues for all the work that you've been doing, and also for the conversations tonight. We may not always agree, but I respect you and I appreciate you, and I think they're good conversations, and we're making progress in the right direction. I'm looking forward to the annual breakfast, the all district breakfast. That's going to be great. There's a lot of fun stuff that already happened and things that are coming up, but I post all that stuff on Instagram anyway, so you don't need to hear about it right now. And then Myra is like, it's like 3 a.m. We should probably get to bed. So that's all for my board report tonight. Thank all of you for staying up and hanging out with us and being informed and engaged. Last thing we have tonight is informational items. Does the board have any questions on the informational items this evening? No? And I know item 14.3, and I know you had a card presented in the beginning. Would you like to speak on the item at all, or introduce yourself to the board and maybe say a couple words? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Board members, I am Philip Gordillo. I am the Executive Director for the California School Personnel Commissioners Association. On Monday evening, the commission met and appointed me as the interim for this district. And so we have some work to do, but I've been working with the administration. I was very pleased to see 2 of you at the meeting, so thank you very much for the support. We have work to do to collaborate with our union, that's CSEA. We have work to do in every corner to solidify some of the positions. I was listening to the conversation you had about Prop 28, and you know, there's clearly, I don't know how long I'll be here. We're going to start running the recruitment immediately, but I'm hoping that whatever positions that are needed for classifications, that we approach it in the sense of look at the low-hanging fruit. If there's classifications that are already there that we could just perhaps modify and meet the need, that might be faster. But we'll collaborate, and I have appreciated Dr. Smith in working with me. I haven't really officially started yet. I'm not even on the clock. So, but I am enjoying my time here at Bellflower. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, at this time, the board will, oh no, I'm sorry. If there's no objection, this meeting is adjourned at 8:54 p.m. until the next regular board meeting to be held on Thursday, August 8th, 2020. Do I say that part, considering we just gave direction to do a special board meeting?
Yes, actually, our next board meeting will be on the 25th.
Okay, so
It will be a special board meeting on the 25th.
So, Mr. Zager, do I say that here rather than the 8th? Next regular, well, no, that's regular board meeting.
You don't have to announce it anyway. You can just adjourn.
Oh, the
meeting.
special?
Because it's going to get posted anyway.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned.